if we're talking about Hikite, I did a video recently where I ran through a kata called Pinan Shodan, also known as Heian Nidan, where I showed different Hikite options. Hikite being the pulling hand. Right? So the kata normally has some double-handed movements and then some movements where there's a pulling hand. And I showed the normal version and then a version using what I call Motobu's Hikite, because the Motobu family make use of this Meotide Gamai posture very extensively. And so it's pulled only part way. Motobu style like Motobu-ryu, yes. Motobu-ryu, both Kempo and Udundi use this as a very standard posture. And so their Hikite is more here. If you look at Motobu Choki's books, he does a lot of basic drills where he keeps a passive hand ready in this position as opposed to here that you see more modern examples of. And then I showed the same using a more modern passive guard. And the thing that you've got to remember about karate is that as a general rule, we don't want shite, or dead hands. I know, sounds funny to English speakers. Shi meaning death, te meaning hand, right? We don't want a dead hand. We don't want a hand that's doing nothing. That's a waste of a hand. So if I'm using the opening movement of the kata to deflect an incoming attack and counter them, and then maybe I'm scooping this out of the way so that I can get more to the side and throw this hammer fist. Well, when I did that, having the Motobu style Hikite makes more sense. But if I just pull it into my side, then a more normal Hikite makes sense. If I don't grab it at all, right, then I've got to keep my hands up. But as a general rule, I want to control my opponent. That's why so many of the techniques you see in karate kata have pulling hands, or pinning hands, or trapping positions. It's very rare to see any technique in kata that would actually just be one hand doing a technique and the other hand doing nothing. The closest you'll find is in some versions of kata, like Naihanchi and Teki, where you'll see various versions of this type of motion, where they've got some sort of reach or punch and some sort of covering motion before they strike. You could see that as being sort of a punch and cover before following up. But again, as a general rule, we don't want to have that dead hand. So, although you can adapt your kata to have that passive guard, that only makes sense in a context where you're not grabbing people.